Hey folks, Jeremy Matuszewski, Thunderstruck Ag. I'm here with Jake Jass, Copperhead Ag, friend of mine.
Hey everybody.
Great sales guy, just a good dude. But one of the things, is we started with this between two hoppers, and we just really wanted to kind of talk about just different things that we see in the industry. And one of the things that I think you do a really good job of, which is why we're here, is talking about return on investment. And so, question to you is guys all the time are stopping by. How are you talking about the investment that they're making, whether it's in a product or on their farm, and how to calculate that return? Give me some thoughts.
Right, so the big thing is farmers have a ton of inputs, right? And so if we can basically what we're doing is we're trying to make those inputs go further. Like, we're trying to help you do more with what you're already doing. So we're not trying to add anything complicated into the mix. We're trying to make your life simpler and raise more bushels using basically the same products that you already have. So,
okay, so let's follow that down the path. So let's say we were talking closing wheels, right?
Yep.
But how are you? So we know closing wheels to do like a 24-row planter is going to be about $3,000, right? $3,200.
Yep.
So a guy's going to spend $3,200 on closing wheels. How
Right.
are you going to help him calculate that return on investment?
Okay, so so it's easiest generally to talk about return on investment with corn. A lot of farmers in the U.S. are focused on corn, and so it's the easy math to do is with corn. So you take a spike closing wheel, you're planting 28,000 to 34,000 plants an acre,
Yep.
and if you're losing 2% of that stand, in the end, you can have a 2% yield decrease. So we say, okay, 200 bushel corn, 2% yield decrease, 4 bushels an acre. Okay, with a spike.
$6 corn, $5 corn. Let's just use $5 corn.
Well, a lot of times what I'll do is, like, we have all kinds of studies showing 10 bushel and 20 bushel, and I like to work with numbers that are realistic, manageable, things that guys will see year after year, so that I always want to under promise and over deliver a little bit on these equations.
It's one of the things we were talking about yesterday with what number are we using. I mean, always the lower number. Give them the lower number.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, we get you 4 more bushels. At $4 corn, $16 an acre. All right, we do 1,000 acres, that's $16,000.
So we invested $3,200
Right.
to make $16,000.
Right,
Wow.
and that's scalable. So you say, okay, well now I'm paying for them in 250 acres.
Right.
So the return on investment piece of it, once you bring it down to that individual acre number, really becomes pretty simple to calculate.
Okay, so that's furrow cruisers. Now I'm going to test you.
Okay.
Concaves.
Yep.
How are we calculating that? Return on investment for concaves.
It really turns into the same equation. So, and I don't know who they are, but they will say that a deer concave or deer combine setup with a stock round bar setup in corn will lose 3 to 5 bushels an acre.
Right.
And so you're talking about 4, 6 kernels in a square foot. That turns into many bushels. Okay.
Right.
So say I can pick you up 2, because we're talking 3 to 5. Let's go with 2. So 2 bushels an acre at $4 corn is $8 an acre.
Back to that 1,000 acres.
Back to that 1,000 acres.
Right. $8,000.
$8,000. So a set of concaves, you're right around $6,000, $6,500, all in, all shipped to you, installed, labor, everything.
Right. So in that scenario, a guy that farms 1,000 acres of corn, he's making about $2,000 if you save him 2 bushels
On the first year.
on the first year. But how do you calculate in, fuel? Right.
Right.
How do you calculate in time?
Quality of sample.
Quality of sample. Like, I talked to a guy yesterday that he is used to getting about 8% dockage when he's doing his seed beans. He's a seed bean grower.
Yeah.
8% dockage. And I said, well, what does it look like if it's at 2%? He's like, that'll pay for himself in the first year. So how do you calculate, like, when we're talking return on investment, and I'm talking to a farmer, you're talking to a farmer, how do we calculate all of that? And not just for our products, one of the things that I talk to guys about, and we've brought some planters up to Canada and stuff like that, is we need to get that payback in 3 years, right? Whatever that plant, like, because guys are bringing it up so they can plant beans with a planter or canola with a planter and cut down on seed cost, right? And I'm like, okay, so we're going to bring up a used planter. It's 3 years. We need to pay it back, everything on that planter, because in 3 years stuff's going to start wearing.
Right.
So how do we, as a farmer or as a person in the industry, how do you calculate all of the different factors? Is there a way?
It's a challenge because it's going to be very individual for every grower, and it's part of why I stick to that simple bushels equation. But you're right, when you start bringing in, we're not grinding up corn, so you're not giving up those fines that are getting dumped out or flying out in the wind.
Which guys also aren't calculating with grain loss.
Right.
Cracks and splits, they never count. They count full kernels, but if you're grinding the crap out of your corn.
Right. So when you start adding that in, it starts to go sort of exponentially larger. And okay, so 3 years on a planter. Well, a set of concaves is going to last a farmer significantly longer than that.
Right.
We might be 3 times longer than that.
8 to 10 years. Yeah.
So, gosh, really, if you get the right set of concaves in your machine and the right team to help you set them, I mean, that return on investment, calculating fuel, I mean, if we can decrease your rotor speed by 50 RPMs, 100 RPMs.
250 RPMs.
Right. So, those things add up. The quality adds up. The less downtime adds up. I mean, we talk about that with Mudsmith gauge wheels. How often are you unplugging that planter? I talked to a guy earlier today. They spent 10 hours unplugging a planter. Well, and that's 2 guys working on it. So you got 20 hours.
Let's assume that they're making
just that downtime.
Right.
Or just the amount you paid those guys to fix it, the problem, pays for a set of wheels. And then you add the fact that they're actually getting those 10 hours back in the field.
Yeah.
And it becomes such a bigger thing than just the downtime.
Okay, so we've walked around this show. Me and you walked around a couple days ago. I walked around today a little bit. You've seen some different things. What's something that you saw, not in our booths or anything, that you were like, that looks like a good return on? Is there something that's a good return on investment?
I saw some things at the Thunderstruck booth.
Okay, other than at our booth, right? Like, I mean, we got some cool farmer invented products. I saw something down in the arena. A company is doing solar, and they're doing solar on shops.
Sure.
Right? And so it was pretty funny because I stopped and was just talking. I wanted to learn a little bit more about solar, and the way that they're calculating it, they have to include grants in there because there's grants for going solar, less electricity. And I was like, so what's the return on investment? And they really, I mean, I thought I could pick up what the return on investment was, but I wasn't sure that they necessarily knew all of the different things. They're like, oh, we can do grants, but they couldn't tell me exactly how many years till I paid for this system.
Right.
But still, I think it was a pretty cool idea. What's something you've seen?
I don't
Sprayer?
have anything.
Nothing?
No.
Nothing you've seen?
No.
It's like, that makes sense?
No. Actually, the one thing I saw that made sense was a guy talking about carbon credits, maybe.
Downstairs, carbon farming.
And I mean, who knows what kind of system he's got, but it's a conversation that needs to be had is what are we doing to get that carbon back in the soil? How are we quantifying it? How is it going to return for the farmer in the long run?
Well, I was talking to a carbon company too. That was another one, and it was a 10-year payback. So you sign it, you make a 10-year commitment to a certain practice, a conservation practice, and they'll pay you. You get, because they're going to collect the credits for you, but they're going to pay you, and it's about 3 to 5 years, they said, before you really start making money, because you've got to change your whole, like, eventually you're going to change your whole farm, like we were talking about last night.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and you got to be smart about making those decisions. You got to come into them. You maybe even got to plan 3 years ahead before you make that change, just to have your ground ready, to have your people ready, your equipment ready. It can be a big deal, but there's a lot of people out here willing to help.
Totally. Well, I appreciate it, Jake. I mean, we're just stopping by, just talking agriculture, talking farming, talking whatever.
At the end of the day, if we can't make you more money, I mean, I'll tell a guy, hey, look, this is what your closing system needs to do for you, and if it's not doing that, or if it is doing that, you don't need what I have.
Right.
And we just want to be that partner and trusted that way, that we're going to tell you the real deal.
So that brings up a question. If you told a guy, hey, based on the number of acres that you're doing or something, I don't think you're going to get the payback. This might not be something that will work for you, or is it like?
Typically not. Typically it's more a homework assignment.
Right.
You know, like he's not sure, I'm not sure, we're talking about it. It's like, well, listen, go home, look at these 3 factors, and after you've looked at those, you can make an educated decision
Right.
about what you need to do. And if I don't get a call from you, that's just fine.
Right.
You know,
That's
in
customer
the
service
end,
too.
right? We need you to just have what you need and know what you're looking for.
It's awesome. Guys, Jake, pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Stay tuned. There might be some other cool things you learn.